Ricardo Rossello finally steps down as Governor of Puerto Rico, and Pedro Pierluisi will be sworn in as his successor. Another 2 cases of Ebola have been confirmed in the border city of Goma in the DRC. And Bolivia celebrates Mother Earth during the month of the Pachamama. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. We start in Puerto Rico. We're at 5 p.m. local time, and after weeks of massive protests, Ricardo Rossello finally stepped down as governor. The news of his resignation has been received with great enthusiasm by a majority of Puerto Ricans. But just before he stepped down, Rossello announced that Pedro Pierluisi would be sworn in as the island's new governor, despite the fact he has only been confirmed by the lower house and still needs Senate approval. In making this decision, Rossello cited an extraordinary provision in the Constitution that allows for a new governor to be sworn in without confirmation from Congress under specific circumstances. Pierluisi was questioned and later confirmed by the island's lower house with a 26 votes to 21 earlier on Friday, despite widespread rejection by citizens who see him as a mere continuation of Rossello. And earlier in the day, the lower house questioned Pierluisi on whether his appointment as a new governor would represent a conflict of interest, given his past role as representative to the U.S. Congress. Here's what he had to say.
To answer directly, no, I don't anticipate having any conflict of interest because my role in public service on this occasion is not of a legal nature. I am not going to be functioning as an attorney. Rather, it has more of an administrative character. As a matter of fact, I'll say this, when I was resident commissioner, I inactivated myself in legal practice, and it was I would also during my public service on this occasion. In other words, I'm not going to be performing as an attorney, and to respond to your question, I don't anticipate, irrespective of what I did and didn't do for the control board as an attorney, I don't anticipate a conflict.
Moving on, the Mexican government has opened its first shelter in the border city of Ciudad Juarez to house asylum seekers sent back from the United States to await their asylum process. According to officials, the shelter can house 3,500 migrants. Similar shelters are set to open in the coming days in Tijuana and Mexicali, and there are plans for another one in Nueva Laredo. Under the Trump administration's so-called Remain in Mexico policy, the U.S. has reportedly returned around 200,000 asylum seekers to wait in Mexico since January.
We would also like to tell you that in this effort, we are going to provide a series of services to help the migrants, providing them with shelter, food, and medical attention. Finally, the most important aspect of this Migrant Integration Center is aiming to be the bridge for the asylum seekers, so that they can access the labor market, and in doing so, they will join the workforce of Ciudad Juarez.
Bolivia is celebrating the Day of Agrarian and Community Revolution as a way to decolonize the thinking and unite in the fight against racism and imperialism. And on this day, President Evo Morales visited the department of Cochabamba to participate in the launching of a program which will extend electricity to 152 rural communities in 11 municipalities. Extending power throughout the country has been top priority under this administration, which says that basic services are a human right. In 2005, 67% of Bolivia had electricity. Under the leadership of President Evo Morales, that number has grown to 93%.
In 2005, when we became a government, the internal demand was 700 megawatts in the whole country, and we produced about 900 megawatts, leaving the demand of the production almost the same. And from that, 100% was in private hands, and it didn't belong to the Bolivians. Once I said that by year 2025, we would be generating 6,000 megawatts. And after I said it, one of the ministers said the president was crazy. If we take the electricity from all the plants along the Rio Grande River alone, we have 6,000 megawatts, and plus the 3,000 we already produce, we would have 9,000 megawatts with a demand of only 2,000 megawatts. We have a surplus of energy, and when we said that Bolivia should be the energy center of South America, we weren't wrong.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has fired the head of a commission which was charged with investigating murders and disappearances that happened during the dictatorship. Speaking at a news conference on Thursday, Eugenia Augusta Gonzaga said she had been removed as the head of the commission alongside 4 other members of the 7-member body. The removal comes a few days after Gonzaga rebuked Bolsonaro's comments mocking the disappearance and murder of Fernando Santa Cruz, a leftist activist during the 1964-1985 military dictatorship.
For us, this removal was an answer to our declarations defending the rights of the Santa Cruz family and all the relatives of former members of resistance movements. We speak of barbarism. Not handing over the body of victims killed by the state is barbarism, but the situation of playing with the version of what happened is cruel.
Eastern Llanos Basin communities delivered a report on Thursday to the transitional justice system in Colombia detailing human rights violations committed by paramilitary groups, military forces, and by members of the former FARC guerrilla movement.
The report was delivered by the victims of both legal and illegal armed groups and sought to unearth the truth behind what happened in the Eastern Plains. It was delivered to the Truth Commission, the Unit for the Search of Disappeared Persons, and the Special Jurisdiction for Peace.
The report narrates present-day criminality against the implementation of territorial control in the region. It focuses on executions, disappearances, and displacements. The report essentially compiles the voices of the victims of the Eastern Llanos Basin.
Magnolia is one of the many victims of this armed conflict that, after 18 years, is still looking for her daughter, who was recruited by the FARC guerrilla group. She hopes this report will help her find out what happened to her daughter.
I would really like to know the whereabouts of my daughter, or at least have her remains given back to me. And if she's still alive, I would love to meet with her and recover so much lost time. 18 years have been stolen. We haven't received any kind of information about her. They took her away when she was 8 years old. The guerrilla recruited her in the Guaviare camp. I would really like to know what happened to her. They can either tell me to collect her bones, or they can let me know if she's alive, because I've spent many years looking for her.
The victims hope that the human rights violations that occurred in the first decade of the 2000s are unveiled under the implementation of the famous democratic security policy established by former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez, and under the development of the military cooperation plans with the United States.
We have to start from the top. Who exactly sent the lower-ranking military officers? They received their orders from high-ranking military officials. Let's find out who they are so they can be investigated and made to pay for these crimes and forced disappearances.
In the Eastern Plains alone, there are 2,304 cases of unidentified persons being buried, from which 1,674 were reported as discharged in combat by public forces, and only 221 bodies have been delivered to their families.
Coming up after the break, Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelts Carrot presents a $444 million tax-free budget. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelts Carrot has presented a $444 million tax-free budget. In the 3-hour presentation, he announced the removal of taxes for a wide array of items ranging from vehicles to diapers. PM Carrot, who is also finance minister, noted his country has made significant strides since Hurricane Maria battered the island in 2017, causing $133 million in losses. He also reminded legislators that after the storm, no one except him wanted to take the lead to commence the island's rehabilitation process.
Tools and other essential inputs. This scheme will support about 200 livestock producers.
A controversial bail bill was passed without amendments in the House of Representatives in Trinidad and Tobago on Wednesday night with the support of the opposition. All 32 members present voted for the bill, which required a 3/5 majority. The bail bill seeks to deny bail for 120 days to a person charged with a listed offense that is punishable for a term of imprisonment of 10 years or more.
The bill proposes that we bring our bail amendment laws into keeping with what is the currency of bail restrictions and bail considerations in the Commonwealth. To do this, Madam Speaker, we come now and we say in the law that we effectively wish to consider the situation of a restriction on bail in effectively two circumstances. The first circumstance is if you have a conviction for a very serious type of offense listed in the second part to the schedule, which is contained in the schedule to this bill. If you have a conviction for a serious offense there, and you have a charge for that same type of offense in the schedule, you ought not to be considered for bail.
For a 24th consecutive Friday, demonstrators have taken the streets of Algeria and, for the first time in their months-long campaign, have called for civil disobedience. Authorities and the protest movement have been on a deadlock since Tuesday, when the army chief rejected preconditions to starting the talks. The protest movement have demanded lifting police roadblocks around Algiers and the release of the people arrested in connection to demonstrations. On Friday, a large number of police vehicles lined up in key roads in the city center, blocking access to secondary roads.
These people who went to dialogue are not themselves our representatives. A dialogue cannot be held with gang members and those who are trying to represent the popular movement, who haven't even been on the street at Algiers' main post office. Those who went to the negotiations don't know what people want or demand. A dialogue cannot be held with the regime. Algerians are not as useless as these representatives. We are telling you to leave. Who are you to represent us?
2 new Ebola cases have been detected in Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to health workers, the wife and baby of a man who died due to the virus have now presented symptoms. Meanwhile, the DRC Ebola response coordinator has appealed to the residents not to panic as necessary measures are being taken. More than 1,800 lives have been lost since the epidemic broke out on August 1st of last year.
One of the recommendations is to ask neighboring countries not to close their borders, so as not to hinder the movement of people and goods. And that was clear. The way people cross borders doesn't guarantee the best control yet. We need to strengthen our control at the border posts we just visited. Also see what Rwanda is doing on the other side and modernize the way we control people who cross, who go to Rwanda.
Presidential candidates in Tunisia have started registering in for the polls in September, called after the death of President Beji Caid Essebsi. 8 candidates have submitted their papers to the country's electoral commission. The prime minister has not yet officially registered, although his party on Wednesday said he would stand in the polls. The elections were originally scheduled for November.
We are committed to enter the battle with the strength of our programs, the strength of our will, and with the strength of the population that believe in us, and the strength of the team that is with us. We have finished the procedures, and we will start touring Tunisia.
We are delivering the message to all Tunisians. Try to choose intelligently. Try to vote for people who have competencies, credibility, for their program and their abilities to apply their programs, as some will not be able to execute their programs.
Zimbabwe's finance minister has announced an increase in electricity tariffs during the presentation of the supplementary budget. He also says there will be food distribution to both urban and rural residents affected by the drought, among other measures. The country has been faced with drought and power shortages this year.
The electricity tariff for domestic consumers will be increased from an average of 9.86 cents per kilowatt hour, which is about 1 US cent, to an average of 27 Zimbabwe cents per kilowatt hour, which is 3 US cents per kilowatt hour. Government has distributed 189,000 metric tons of grain since January, and this is supporting 757,000 households. The beneficiaries for the first time are in both rural and urban areas.
In Sudan, demonstrators filled the streets of the capital in condemnation of the killings of several school children during a protest in El Obeid. At least 4 high school students and an adult were shot and killed on Monday by what many believe was the doing of the military and paramilitary forces. It sparked this and other massive demonstrations. 9 members of a paramilitary group have been detained in connection with the killings. The demonstrators are continuing to call on the military council to hand over power to a civilian-led government.
We demand a civil state, a state that protects us, a state that has sovereignty, a state that has rights. The Sudanese people should be ruled by a civilian government. This is why all people came here to demand a civilian government. Everyone here is demanding rights, their rights. They don't belong to the government. Everyone is demanding a civil state, and the civil state will hopefully be achieved.
The Ethiopian Prime Minister has justified the government's move to shut down internet services last week, saying it was done to save lives in the wake of a coup attempt back in June. Speaking to journalists in Addis Ababa, President Abiy Ahmed said the internet is not water, internet is not air. He has also warned that if people use the internet to incite the killing of fellow citizens and destroy property, then the switch off could be long-term. Internet and text messaging services were first shut down earlier in June when national school teams were being held to prevent from cheating. Coming up after the break, residents of Lampung City in Indonesia are evacuated after a 6.9 magnitude earthquake. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Residents of Lampung City in Indonesia have been evacuated after a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck off the southern coast. The country's geophysics agency had issued a tsunami warning for coastal communities nearby, but has already lifted it. There are no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Small explosions left 4 people injured in Bangkok, Thailand, as the country hosts the regional summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The explosions took place near the center of the city and in the northern part of Bangkok, near the government complex. A total of 6 exploded bombs were recovered by police, with 1 more unexploded device also found. Thailand's foreign minister is due to hold a news conference at the conclusion of the 52nd Asian Foreign Ministers meeting. The bodies of 20 migrants who died in a recent boat accident in the Mediterranean Sea have washed ashore at the Libyan town of Homs. Dozens of people are still missing after the boat carrying more than 300 migrants capsized off the coast of Libya on July 26. About 134 were rescued by the Coast Guard and local fishermen. The United Nations has welcomed a ceasefire in northwestern Syria. The Syrian government agreed to a truce with armed groups in Idlib on the condition that a buffer zone is established in the area. According to the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, no airstrikes have been reported since Thursday in Idlib.
And on Syria, we can say that we welcome last night's announcement of a ceasefire in the northwest of the country. According to the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, no airstrikes have been reported since midnight, but there are reports of artillery shelling in northern Hama. The pause comes after 3 months of intense hostilities that have resulted in close to 500 civilians killed and the displacement of more than 440,000 people. The UN reminds all parties to the conflict and those who have influence over them of their obligations to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure and the principles of distinction and proportionality enshrined in international humanitarian law.
U.S. rapper A$AP Rocky has been released from custody in Sweden, where he was on trial for assault. A$AP Rocky, whose real name is Rakim Myers, had been detained for a month after being accused of attacking a 19-year-old man. Two of his associates, who were also charged with assault, have been released. While the trial has ended and Rocky has returned to the U.S., the judge will hand down a verdict on August 14th. In Bolivia, August is the month of Pachamama. Throughout the month, thousands of people thank Mother Earth for the latest harvest by giving offerings. Let's find out more about this ancestral tradition.
Lupi has never failed on August the 1st with her offering to Pachamama. And Mother Earth, says Lupi, has never failed her in everything she has asked for.
It's a belief we have so that things go well, so nothing happened to us. So we do things on the 1st of August. We open up to Pachamama to thank her for everything she gave us in the year. We receive, but also have to give.
In the calendar of the peoples of the highlands and the valley, August is the month of Pachamama. Thousands go to high points, known as Apacheta in Aymara, with their offering of the best fruits, sweets, incense, honey, and llama fetuses.
We ask her to help us do well in our jobs so that we have money, because we have to work to get something.
You have to go with that faith that it has already happened, that Pachamama has fulfilled our wishes, so you have to have faith.
In each offering, there are different mysteries. There are mysteries in these sweets, with different signs that are for health and work.
The offering to Mother Earth is a ceremony performed by an Aymara priest, known as Amauta. While the offering is burnt on a wood fire, it is sprinkled with soft drinks and alcohol. If it is completely burnt up and only white ash remains, that means Pachamama has received it and is pleased.
The people who come here without faith ask for health, and also for their family, for their business, for luck.
They also ask for solutions to all the problems they have. They come to ask and it is fulfilled. I prepare the table for them with a lot of faith.
Once the offer is burnt, it is buried. Tradition says that after the planting and harvest seasons in August, the driest month of the year, Mother Earth is exhausted, tired and parched. That's why her children come to give her food and drink, to thank her for what they have received, and to ask her for new favors.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.